So here we are. We're going to need ourselves about 4 variables that we're going to have to take into consideration. And let me just go back and run my Python module here just to showcase. Yeah, okay. Just run this again just to see here. So basically this dotted line right here, we're going to need to be able to fill this guy in. So that A, it also needs to know the length of the random word we picked. So for example, if I were to just run this module again, this line might not be the same length. So let me just go to run the module. And now the module, see, it was this long before, but now it's this one. So it might be asp or boa, but before it wasn't. This was probably something like cottonmouth or rattlesnake or something. So basically we need to figure out what this guy is. We also need to figure out how many numbers we have wrong, and we need to put a thing in the used container. So for example, if I say, D, my guess is D, and the D was already there, and now if I hit D again, you've already guessed that letter. So we need to figure out a way to check these things and make sure they're inside the guessed letter. So basically, that's what we're going to do. We're going to figure out this guy, and we're going to figure out how to put letters out of this bin and into another bin. So I'll just kill the program while it's running. So let's start out. First off, let's pick ourselves a word here, because we've got like 10 different words here, or I've got like 12 or whatever, but I want a minimum of at least 10. So, I don't know, I'll just name this as picked word equals, and we're going to make this a random word from this bucket, right? From this container of all these words. So it's going to be a random dot choice. And where am I grabbing it from? I'm grabbing it from this bucket. And of course, the way to always check to see if this works is simply print. You make a print statement. Is it going to be picking something different every single time? So I'll just execute it. And it picked Hades. Okay. And I'll just pick an H. There we go. It's done. So let me execute it again. Is it going to pick me Hades again? No, it picked me Ares. And I'll just put an R because I know there's going to be an R in it. So we know that it is in fact picking different random words every single time. So we can either delete this line or we can simply comment it out. Okay? So we know that it's working. We know we don't need to test to see if it's printing. So one of those two things we can do. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make ourselves, how many wrong guesses do we have? How many times did we get something wrong? So I'll just name this wrong, and I'll currently make it equal to 0. Because obviously you start the game with 0, right? With 0 guesses wrong, which would be the first spot in this. And we'll have to, attach this into this bin at a later date. So we're going to have to connect this to this later on in the code. But just remember, that's what we're going to wind up doing with this. We're also going to have to make a new bucket for, the used letters. And used letters is going to currently equal just a blank bucket. So we're going to take these letters from here, and we're going to put it in there at some point at a later date. So just remember we have to use that. Okay? But then we also need to make ourselves a... what's the word I'm looking for? We're going to have to make that dashed line, right? So, I don't know, I'll just make that the dashed word, since it's the dashed letters. Remember, it was the dashed letters that was representing the word? So I'll make a dashed word, and that dashed word is going to be equal to something. What's it going to be equal? Well, it's going to have to be equal to whatever the heck this picked word is, right? So it's whatever that random word is, we're going to have to make a dashed version of that. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to make it out of that. It's going to literally just be those hyphens. It's going to be a quote of a hyphen. But if I were to print that out, and I just literally just say print, dashed word, And matter of fact, here I'll even do this. I'll print the picked word again. So now I'll compare the picked word to the dashed word. If I print those out, the picked word is Heracles, but the dashed word only has one dash. That's obviously not going to work for us. So what I have to do is I have to multiply this by the length of this word. How long is that word? So yes, I can do a math equation out of this dashed word. So my dashed word is now going to equal my length, and what's length? Length is Len, and then the length of what? Oh, well, the length of my picked word. So I'll just even put those guys right next to each other so we can see it very easily there. So now we'll see the picked word and then the dashed word, and then we'll print them out right next to each other. So Venus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dashes. So we know that this dashed word is now the exact length of the word that was randomly picked. So basically, think about it. It's a hangman game. If there's only 5 letters in the word, you want to show the player that there's 5 spaces. There's 5 letters they need to figure out. So that's what we need to figure out. And now, since we know that that is working properly, tell you what, we'll even do it again just to be on the safe side. Execute, so we'll just execute it again. This time it's Zeus, and this time it's only 1, 2, 3, 4 letters. So we're good. We know that this works. Therefore, I don't need these print statements anymore, and I've got all 4 of the variables that I'm going to be using for the logic of this game. We have our picked word, we have the visual representation of how many letters are in the word, we have the number of choices that we have incorrectly, and we've got this. These 2 we haven't gotten to actually coding yet, but we'll code those guys in a little bit. Actually, I think we're probably going to be coding some of these guys next week, but just know that you're going to be using them. Okay? And I will now move on to the next statement.